Hello, 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 hello. Oh, thank you for subscribing to the channel, whoever that was. Yeshwan. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Maybe. Yeshwan, thank you for subscribing, mate. Massively appreciate that. How are we all doing? Let me click the go live button for the people who join us on the vertical stream as well. How are we all feeling? It's been a couple of hours. Don't know about you. Sort of disappeared off. Made myself a lovely cauliflower and chickpea curry. It was delicious. Just had that. Took about an hour to make, had about half an hour to eat it. A little half an hour sit down, right back on it again into the Formula One sphere. And we can kind of talk about a little bit of the reflections on the Qatar sprint race, which went down a little bit more contentious than I thought it was. Like, I don't know whether it's just because there isn't really much left to talk about this season, but let's talk about it, right? So obviously, at the end of the sprint race, Lando Norris slows down after a dominant performance. Like, it's pretty clear to see that Lando Norris could have, and probably should have, won that sprint race by a considerable margin. Like, we are talking, I don't know, he was probably half a second to a second per lap quicker than the guys behind. You saw every single middle sector was just purple, followed by purple, followed by purple. Nobody could get anywhere close to him. And then he was backing off in that final sector to let Oscar Piastri within touching distance so that he didn't leave his teammate for dead and in the clutches of George Russell. But then, at the end of the Grand Prix, even though Lando Norris was completely dominant, he gives up that position to Oscar Piastri to allow Oscar Piastri to get the victory. Now, I kind of saw it at the time, obviously, and was like, oh, okay, Lando Norris has let Oscar Piastri back by because of what Oscar Piastri did in Brazil, where they switched places the other way round. Obviously, now that Lando Norris and the championship is done and dusted, McLaren just need as many points as possible in terms of the constructors, and it doesn't matter which way around the two cars come in, right? First place, second place, doesn't matter as long as the two McLaren cars are that first and second, right? So I thought, oh, that's quite nice from Lando Norris to do that, to give the position back to Piastri because Piastri gave him the position in Brazil, and therefore they both go home with a first place sprint trophy. Okay, they kind of swapped, right? And if anything, they maybe will swap. Like, that would be quite funny if Lando Norris takes his Qatar or takes his Brazil trophy and swaps it with Oscar Piastri's Qatar trophy that they're obviously going to have from those two sprint races because they got back-to-back first and second places in those. So it would be quite funny if they did just swap as they probably should, because they should have had those the other way around. But I don't know. A lot of people seem really angry at McLaren and at Lando, and just because he's giving that position. Some people are also like linking it back to when Barrichello gave the position to Schumacher, and Schumacher then like gave the position back to Barrichello later on in the season and things like that. And I just don't think it's that deep. I think it really is just one of those, okay, they've had enough. Like, the season is pretty much done and dusted for them. They know that they've got the 1-2 in the bag. And I like that Lando Norris did it. I know that the McLaren team also were a little bit against it, which kind of made sense because it was pretty close to giving up another position to George Russell behind. But I just thought it was so strange that people really got angry about it and were like, McLaren need to stop doing this. Is them swapping positions just like losing all credibility for the sprint races and things like that? I just don't agree with that. I just think they swapped back because they had already swapped once in Brazil, and they just sort of gave that point back. Like, Lando Norris has almost given that point back to Piastri that he gained in Brazil. He's given, as I say, that trophy that he gained in Brazil back to Piastri in one way or another. And I thought that was quite an interesting one, that people were like really frustrated by it. I suppose the other thing to play into it was George Russell fans a little bit frustrated. The fact that Lando Norris was playing such a team game. Formula One is a team game, first and foremost. Like, you do always have two drivers per team. That's how it's always going to be. And the fact that the Mercedes car, it's a little bit 50-50 for me. Obviously, if George Russell would have held on to second place anyway, like we could always argue it from that perspective, right? Should he have held on to second place anyway? Should he have allowed Oscar Piastri to take that position in the first place? I feel like he did a pretty good job, and Oscar Piastri just kind of stuck his McLaren car where he needed to, and Piastri just kind of got the move done early. Then, of course, there was a couple of incidents where Piastri maybe closed the door a touch too quickly on George Russell, or a touch late on George Russell. But again, I don't think there was anything super untoward there. So I think for me, the McLaren team, obviously Lando Norris slowing down to let Oscar Piastri have DRS, and the McLaren team using that to their advantage is just something that you do see at this point in the season, where Constructors' Championships are on the line, things are needed, and they do want to hold on to that 1-2 position, because a 1-2 in any race, sprint or Grand Prix, is always like a statement, isn't it? It's, we had both of the fastest cars. And again, I just understand why people are a little bit frustrated. I understand why George Russell fans weren't too happy about it. But at the same time, I can kind of see why that ended up being the case. I think another one to talk about, just quickly, is if we look at it, obviously Hulkenberg picking up those 2 points for Haas. I think that is huge. I think that is absolutely massive when it comes to this one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I've got a few hellos coming through in the chat. Hello, hello, hello. Going to do top 3 predictions. We will indeed. We will indeed. Although it's a little bit tainted by the fact that we've had a sprint race. But we'll go through the predictions as normal. Got about 20 minutes or so before qualifying gets underway. But the other one I did want to highlight, it was Nico Hulkenberg picking up those 2 points for Haas. I feel like that could be crucial. I know that Sergio Perez having a tough time. Max Verstappen wasn't great either. But generally speaking, that top 8 is pretty much locked in. So you're looking at 2 points being the most that a midfield driver can really pick up the majority of the time. So the fact that Haas now have a 3-point advantage, there's 2 Grand Prix to go. So yes, there's more than 6 points available. But to those back market teams, those midfield and back market teams, you'd argue that there's kind of 6 to 10 points available. There's a 6 to 10 point swing. Obviously, outside Alpine doing something ridiculous like they did in Brazil, or somebody being able to replicate that kind of performance. But if Qatar and Abu Dhabi go the way that you'd expect them to, as I say, I think there's 6 to 10 points on the cards for those teams. Haas, RB, Alpine. That 2 points means that, 6 points, 3-point swing. It's going to be a tough ask for Alpine or RB to do it now when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. And I think that just about locks in Haas in 6th place for me. As I say, unless Sergio Perez has an absolute awful Grand Prix, or Max Verstappen falls out of the top 10, or 2 of the top 10 crash into each other. Outside of that, the big 4 teams having an absolute nightmare, I think Haas have just about locked in that 6th place finish. Or at least they should realistically have locked in that 6th place finish with 2 races to go. Because that drive from Nico Hulkenberg, very, very impressive indeed. Although you could argue Max Verstappen would be looking at that and not very happy about it at all. Obviously, Max Verstappen fell behind the Mercedes, fell behind the Haas. It was not a fun afternoon for Max Verstappen in any way whatsoever. Oh, chat free. Sorry, that's probably me. I'll reload it. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that, mate. Love watching your streams. Thank you very, very much. What's my favorite team? I am a McLaren fan, despite the RB jumper. But I got this RB jumper on the 100,000 subscriber live stream. And I wanted to treat myself to a little bit of RB, are kind of my second team. I will say that. Not RB in its forms, but the second Red Bull team. As much as I kind of disagree with it fundamentally, I do quite like a lot of the drivers that have been there. So it's become my team that I kind of support secondarily, just because Pierre Gasly I quite like, Yuki Tsunoda I quite like. It's slowly become my second team over time, really. But no, apologies about the chat freeze. Hopefully should be sorted. There we go, sorted now. Shall we have a little look at some predictions? Some predicciones. I know it's a little bit, as I say, a little bit tainted by the fact that we have already had the sprint, but we do our predictions. Obviously, if you want to get involved in the predictions, you can send them over on the community tab. I usually put a post out on a Wednesday. It generally tends to be before the Grand Prix. Obviously, one more to go. You can get your predictions in for Abu Dhabi on Wednesday over on the community tab. But let's take a little look at your guys' predictions then. And if I find the community tab, here we go. Oh, where's that not? Scroll down a touch. Oh, it's because I'm not zoomed in. There we go. Who did people go for? In the UK and as Amy? Indukan and Asami. Not sure. Induk and Asami? Maybe? Went for Lando Norris winning. Looks like a pretty good guess considering the sprint race. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton on the podium. Not so sure. Although flop team Red Bull, I feel like you could certainly say Red Bull flopped when it came to the sprint race. And if they do the same again, they're going to be in a very, very tough, or have a very, very tough weekend ahead of them. Max Verstappen could not get that Red Bull car clicking. And Sergio Perez ended up pitting in a sprint race to try out a new front wing and see if they could fix the balance issues that they are having inside of that car. Gosler said Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris. Ooh, okay. Aston Martin flop team, Sergio Perez struggle. Again, are we allowing that anymore? Like, Sergio Perez struggles, Stake Sauber struggle. They seem like guarantees at this point. So you're not really allowed to go for them. Not really allowed to go for them. They're too predictable at this point. Andrew went up front. I think Ferrari will bounce back from Vegas. I mean, Vegas wasn't a bad weekend for Ferrari as such. Like, they were the second fastest car by a good margin. I think it's just we were all predicting Ferrari to be the fastest car when it came to the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend. And that's why it kind of dwindled a touch, didn't it, when it came to Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari once said that aerodynamics are people who can't build good engines. Now they have an average engine and great aerodynamics. I think that's a little bit harsh. Bottas and Joe will have given up any points after Vegas. Ooh. I mean, Bottas finished in 12th place in the sprint race. Not looking horrendous for Valtteri Bottas at the moment. Aileen said winner, Lando and Oscar. Mercedes will bounce back real well. I mean, do they have to bounce back when they took a commanding 1-2 victory in Vegas? Winner Lewis, said Baby Groot. Ooh, not looking likely at the moment. Maybe, but looking unlikely. Lando Norris and Oscar. Flop team Cash App RB. It was a pretty floppy sprint race for them, actually, wasn't it? Liam Lawson starting 10th, dropping all the way towards the back of the pack. Flop team Williams. Struggle Charles is a bit harsh. Surprise Sonoda. Liam Lawson having the better of it in sprint qualifying yesterday, but both having a pretty tough sprint race. I like the predictions. I like them. They're there. They're good. If you want to get involved, as I said, you can get involved in the predictions. They go out on the community tab every single Wednesday. What are you guys saying in the chat? See what predictions we've got in. Aston Martin, Alonso. Any chances? Oh, I don't think so. I think, as you know, Aston Martin just absolutely on the beach, aren't they? They just can't be bothered for the rest of the season. The rest of the season doesn't really matter to them. They're not fighting for anything. You could argue Lance Stroll is kind of fighting in the driver's standings to be like best of the rest behind Alonso, but Nico Hulkenberg looks pretty much dead set on that now. Thought it was supposed to start at 7:30. No, I don't think so. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock my time. So we're about 15 minutes out. Yeah, Amo's got you. What's up, chat? Hello, mate. How are we doing? I'm sorry for asking again, but what's your take on Bottas's possible future career? I think he's got a lot of options as Valtteri Bottas. I think over the last couple of years, he's built up quite a considerable fan base from just being a little more personable, you know, showing a little bit more of his actual character on the grid. When he was at Mercedes, it was very regimented. You could tell that he was kind of told what to say almost by the Mercedes team a lot of the time. But we've seen in the last couple of years that really fly in terms of, oh, okay, he's giving out some positivity. He's giving out more Valtteri Bottas vibes. I could see him. There's little bits of chat about him being the Mercedes reserve driver next year. I think that makes sense. I think he'd be a really good person for Kimi Antonelli to have alongside him. You know, he's been there, done it, won Constructors' Championships with the Mercedes team, knows the Mercedes team inside and out. Okay, yeah, it'll have changed a little bit since he'd have been there. A few people will be in different places, but generally speaking, the whole ethos of the team, he understands and he knows really well. So I could see Valtteri Bottas kind of making that switch back to the Mercedes reserve driver seat. There's Formula E talks. There's IndyCar talks. Again, I could see him going either way. I think IndyCar less so. I just don't really see Valtteri Bottas going that way. But certainly Formula E, I think there's options for him there. I think there'll be lots of teams that want him. And of course, then you open the door to, is he going to just try and stick around for a year and hopefully get one of those Cadillac seats? If Cadillac are going to get in for 2026, yeah, there you go. Strolovich to GM Cadillac. Less so. Bottas to Cadillac, though, says Amo. And I think, yeah, that move to Cadillac and sort of him being the face of this brand new team, maybe he kind of takes the Nico Hülkenberg role. You know, Nico Hülkenberg's going over to Audi to be just sort of the experience there, isn't he? Sort of make sure that he delivers the performances required every single week, whilst Gabriel Bortoleto learns the ropes a little bit. And also the fact that he's a German driver does help. I suppose Valtteri Bottas, if he was American, that would work out a little bit better. But I think Bottas could do that role, right? He could be almost like an ambassador for the Cadillac team coming in and be the experience within the team. Ricciardo and Bottas at Cadillac, I don't think so. I think they'll go, it seems very cliche, but I think they'll go one experienced driver and then one kind of either inexperienced driver when it comes to Formula One. So maybe a Formula 2 racer that we have right now, or somebody in and around the Formula One paddock. So that's still fairly young. Or there's also a lot of links to the IndyCar scene, isn't there? And the IndyCar drivers that might come in. So, yeah, I don't know. Bottas, I could see filling one of those seats, but I can't see Danny Rick and Bottas. I could see Danny Rick or Bottas as that experience seat inside of that Cadillac team, but I don't know if I see both of them there. I think if we do see both of them there, it'll only be for like a season. I think that they'll be like, okay, you've got this year, we're kind of setting up shop. Daniel Ricciardo's bringing in all the fans. Valtteri Bottas bringing in that experience. And Valtteri Bottas had a pretty good year in Stakes Alba. You got to remember, he's had the worst car on the grid by a considerable margin. He hasn't done too badly with it, considering. But yeah, I think Valtteri Bottas, Cadillac, he'll definitely be in discussions with them. But then it is like, what does he do for this year off? Does he just take a reserve drive somewhere in and around the Formula One grid, most likely Mercedes? Just seeing Cadillac's car testing on Instagram. They've been testing the car for ages now. You got to remember, it started off as Andretti Cadillac. So Andretti kind of put the pieces together. I made a little bit of a short on it when the news dropped, because people are like, well, where's this Andretti name gone? Like, where's the Andretti title dropped from this team? And it's just because General Motors have taken a little bit more of an interest in it. General Motors are a bigger cut of the pie. Also, Michael Andretti has stepped down from a lot of his duties in terms of kind of Andretti and GM and where he sits in that hierarchy. So the Andretti name has kind of been taken off, but it is still the Andretti project as we kind of knew it before. They're still going to use the US base and the UK satellite facility that Andretti built. They're still using all of the CFD and data that Andretti got from their work with Toyota in Cologne. They're still using all of the staff that Andretti hired during that time when they were trying to put together all of their facilities. Like, there's still the Andretti team at heart. It's just not got the Andretti badge on it, which I guess is a little bit of a kick in the teeth for the Andretti family and the Andretti kind of build behind the scenes, because they did put a lot of the work in. But yeah, the Andretti name just taken. Mick Schumacher to Audi, who says no. I say no. There you go. Just me at the moment. Colapinto to GM Cadillac. If RB reject him, yeah, again, he's been linked, and you can understand why. Young driver, high ceiling. Definitely could go into that Cadillac. I think there's a lot of... I've made a video on the whole Cadillac driver situation, which I'm probably going to try and finish editing after this qualifying session. So that should come out on the channel very, very soon. I know a couple of other channels have already had their kind of say on it. There's so many drivers that Cadillac could pick from. Like, I put it out on the community tab, actually. If you want to get involved, I mean, I've already filmed the video, so it's a little bit late to get your name in, but I sort of used the community tab as a base. And somebody asked, where do I get all my ideas and stuff? What do I use as a source for a lot of my videos? A lot of the time it is the community tab. I put out a post that was like, who goes in? There you go. Who goes into the Andretti Cadillac team? And asked you guys, who would you put in there for 2026? And got so many responses. And basically, I just used these responses as the basis of the video. Dug a little bit deeper into some of the names that have come up. Mika Hakkinen, not one of the ones I decided to delve a little bit deeper into, but a few of these names here, and most of the names that kind of popped up in the comment section here I used to build that video off of. So, as I say, if you want to get involved in the videos and you want to sort of point me in the direction that you want to see, because as I say, this channel is for all of us. As much as I make the content and, you know, sit here and do it, because I love it. Oh, clicked the wrong button. Because I just absolutely love talking about Formula One. At the same time, I do want to build a little bit of community, which also leads me on to saying thank you to you guys that came along for the Senna stream yesterday. So after sprint qualifying yesterday, we also watched the first episode of Senna in the first watch along that I'm going to be trying to run at least once every sort of 3-4 weeks or so, once a month guaranteed, is going to be a watch along of some kind of Formula One, either documentary or film, or maybe even a race from the past as well, where we watch a Grand Prix from yesteryear. Like, I really want to go back and watch some of the 2012 races. I really want to go back and watch some of the 2016 races with Hamilton and Rosberg. I think that would be a really fun sort of way of doing those kind of watch-alongs. And we'll, especially in the off-season when we're not live as often, because there aren't as many Grand Prix, obviously, we'll have that kind of as a bit of a filler. What were my thoughts about the first episode? I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. Like, we kind of got to the point, there was like some of us watching it and we were having a chat through the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. And then it just kind of went quiet. I think all of us were just captivated. And then we realized like 20 minutes later that none of us had said anything for about 10 minutes. So it was like, oh, yeah, throw things in the chat once again. But yeah, it was really, really fun. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm very much looking forward to episode number 2. But as I say, if you want to support the channel, especially in the off season where the channel doesn't make as much money because we haven't got these live streams going on and we haven't got the watch-alongs happening. If you do want to support the channel, hit the links in the description. You can either become a member to the channel or a patron. Both of them get you access to exactly the same thing. It's just whichever one works out better. I know that Patreon is slightly cheaper in some countries. Memberships are slightly cheaper in other countries. So you can flip-flop between the two. But it was absolutely brilliant. Just kind of watch along. And as I say, I want to build up a little bit of community. So if you become a member or become a patron, you get access to the members-only Discord, where we have chats quite often about what's going on in Formula One. You get a little bit higher access into things like behind the scenes. You also get access to an extra mailbag episode from the podcast every single week. And as I said, you get access to these watch-alongs that we do every now and then. There is lots and lots of content coming your way if you become a member or patron, possibly even some merchandise coming, although I say that tentatively. With 5 minutes left to go before qualifying. If we could hit the like button, hit that subscribe button as well, that'd be absolutely amazing. And let's get into qualifying. Let me just double check. We've got the boards and bits and pieces set up. We haven't got any radio messages coming in as of yet. And actually, the radio messages not quite in the right spot. Let me sort that out, otherwise it will annoy me. There we go. But as I say, very, very much ready and raring to go. We are back, and we are going once again. Which race did I least like this year? Oh, that is a good question, because it's been such a good year. Oh, didn't mean to do it. Which race did I least like? Least like? Ooh. I think it's got to be early on, hasn't it? It's maybe somewhere like a China or something. Max Verstappen winning by like 20 seconds was pretty dull. Bahrain, like there's just maybe I think Bahrain and Saudi, like the early race. Actually, Saudi had Behrman though, and that was a good kind of talk about. Maybe Bahrain, as weird as it might sound, first race of the season. I need to go back and look at it properly. Obviously, I'll do a full review of the season once it's done. Monaco, yeah, okay. Monaco's probably the one, isn't it? Monaco's always just quite a dull race, but then really exciting in terms of qualifying. I always try and judge the whole season, or like I try and judge a weekend on the whole weekend. So like Monaco, yeah, the race was really, really dull, but the qualifying is always really, really intense. So like Monaco qualifying makes up for that a little bit. Yeah, maybe not enough to warrant it not being the best race of the season. Let's have a little look. Monaco. Yeah, the Monaco haters now coming into the chat. Which race did I sleep on as well? Sort of the other way around. Ooh. Maybe someone like a Spain. I always kind of expect the Spanish Grand Prix to be a little bit dull, but it was pretty impressive this time around. Netherlands, Zandvoort. Zandvoort was actually quite interesting, where it normally is a fairly dull affair. Will Colapinto get a seat next year? I'm doubtful. I am doubtful. I think that RB seat is the one, right? But we don't know. And Helmut Marko even came out and said this earlier on in the week. He was like, we're going to all sit down together, which I assume means all 4 of the drivers that are in current seats for the Red Bull program. So Max, Checo, Lawson, and Yuki. Like, you got to remember, Lawson isn't even guaranteed a seat for next season, let alone Franco Colapinto getting in there. I also find it really weird that Alpine have been in talks with Franco Colapinto. That can't bode well if you're Jack Doohan, can it? Poor Jack Doohan got himself a seat. He's like, yeah, ready to go. 2025 into the Alpine setup. And then he's suddenly being told, well, Jack, there is this Argentinian that we're quite interested in sort of seeing how he does. Here we go then. Is it just me doing the live stream, or do I have a team to help you out? Unfortunately, it's just me. It is certainly just me. I'm glad you think that there's a team helping me out, though. Means I'm doing maybe something good. Flop team of the season. I mean, Stakes Alba. They haven't scored a point. I suppose flop team in comparison to where I was like expecting them to be versus where they ended up being. I was going to say Alpine, but now they've kind of jumped back up into fighting for 6th place in the standings. I suppose Alpine, you like realistically, they should have been alongside Aston Martin, considering where those two teams are and what they kind of have the setup and the the money that they have backing them. But yeah, I still think Alpine you can see as a flop team despite that double podium finish in Brazil. That was very much a one-off performance that has allowed them to be in this position, isn't it? Although Pierre Gasly has been very, very quick in the last sort of 5-6 Grand Prix weekends. Aston Martin flop team. I can understand that as well. Can very much understand thinking Aston Martin are a flop team because I don't know, they started the year on par with Mercedes. Like I know that Mercedes weren't having a great start to the season, but they were at least on par with the Mercedes team. And then it just kind of slowly ebbed away, didn't it? Bottas needs to score a point so he won't finish 23rd. Yeah, 23rd in a 20-driver championship is never a great look, is it? Well, there's Matteo Binotto here for the Stake Sauber team. Nice to see him back. You said I'm a teacher. What do you teach? I'm a physics teacher. Which kind of goes hand in hand, I guess, with Formula One in one way or another. Here we are then. George Russell. Ooh. Scrubbing a set of tyres for tomorrow's Grand Prix. The medium compound tyre on the Mercedes car. Very interesting indeed. Obviously, they've got a little bit of data from the sprint race. Charles Leclerc on the radio complaining about the fact that there is so much traffic in the pit lane. Everybody's just trying to find a gap for themselves. And Charles Leclerc wants to get on with it by the looks of things. There you go, George Russell back into the pit. So yeah, it was just a scrub lap on those medium compound tyres. We'll have to wait and see if we see those again tomorrow for George Russell at some point in the Grand Prix. And Mercedes have got a plan of action for those medium compound tyres that he's just scrubbed. Everybody trying to make their way out. Piastri, Hamilton and Verstappen, the three drivers still in the pits. Hamilton literally just coming onto the racetrack now. George Russell going in and out of the pits. Oscar Piastri is going to be the last man to take to the track in this qualifying session. Here we are then. Kevin Magnussen currently on a flying lap for Haas. We'll just see where everybody settles into this qualifying here today. Expecting similar results, I would say, to the sprint qualifying yesterday, although we do get to see the cars straight away on the soft compound tyre. So it does allow just that little bit of change. Maybe a tiny little bit of variance for the cars that are just that little bit better on the soft compound tyre compared to the medium, of course, that we have to use in sprint qualifying 1 and sprint qualifying 2. The soft compound tyres on, and Kevin Magnussen sets the standard at a 1:23.5. Carlos Sainz starting his flying lap. Valtteri Bottas goes quicker than Kevin Magnussen, a 1:22.7. Much more like it from Valtteri Bottas. We're expecting the drivers to get into the 121s, the 120s maybe, a real push. Joe qualifies ahead of Perez. Would not be a good look for the Mexican, who's already not having the best of weekends. Have we forgotten about Yuki and how talented he is? I mean, he had a stunning Vegas Grand Prix, didn't he, Yuki Tsunoda? And then ebbed away a little bit. I mean, he is guaranteed a seat, at least. You know, at least he is one of the drivers that is locked in for next season. Well, as locked in as you can be when it comes to a Red Bull seat. But he has got a contract for 2025. Out of contract in 2026, though, Yuki Tsunoda. Which again means he's in the mix for that kind of Cadillac build team as well. Franco Colapinto comes across the line to go 4th fastest. Lance Stroll has gone quickest of anybody so far with a 1:22.3. But here come the drivers that are more likely to jump to the top of the timing sheets. Charles Leclerc, Lance Stroll. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. So I meant Carlos Sainz just coming into the pits. Carlos Sainz was on a scrub set of softs there and decided against finishing that lap. Charles Leclerc does, though, in the other Ferrari. Let's see where he goes in terms of the timing sheet. 2nd fastest. 400, sorry, of a second behind Lance Stroll on a scrubbed set of softs. Oh, no, Lance Stroll was also on a scrubbed set of softs as well. Nobody going onto the fresh rubber as of yet. Sergio Perez comes across the line at 122.4. Max Verstappen is going very quickly through the first and second sector as Lando Norris jumps to the top of the timing sheets at 122 dead. Max Verstappen going to be the first driver into the 121s. He is indeed a 121.7 from Max Verstappen. Puts him at the top of the timing sheets for now. Still looking... Oh, Franco Colapinto. Lap time deleted inside of that Williams car. We're getting quite a few lap times deleted, actually. Just sort of show you on the track limits. We get Magnussen, Albon, and Colapinto have all had a lap time deleted between them. Oscar Piastri comes across the line to go third fastest. Two Aston Martin cars have made their way back to the pits. So keep an eye on them just coming back out onto the circuit. Lewis Hamilton has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. We are going to start to see the lap times tumble here. Again, the track just warms up that little bit to the tyres and gets the grip levels. George Russell has just gone quicker than his teammate through the first sector. Hamilton, a little bit of a mistake through the middle sector. Just got a little out of shape through that twisty part of the circuit. Hamilton coming into the final sector. A little bit of traffic to contend with as well. A couple of Ferraris and a Haas in front of him. He's going to come across the line. Kevin Magnussen ahead of him goes to 9th place. Lewis Hamilton jumps up into 4th spot. The two McLarens ahead of him. Valtteri Bottas jumps up to 5th just behind. But George Russell is looking like he is going to jump in front of Max Verstappen here. Verstappen coming into the pits and George Russell fastest in the first and second sectors. Can he go fastest in the third sector as well? He can't, but he does still go fastest of anybody out on track. A 121.5 from George Russell. Colapinto and Albon, the two drivers that have technically completed a lap, although they were deleted, have dropped into the bottom 5. Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, and Esteban Ocon. 3 drivers yet to put in a full lap time. Russell being the Saturday man that he is. Yeah. Mr. Saturday, most certainly back. Lewis and Charles' dance was just... Lando Norris goes purple in the first sector. You can just see currently third on the timing sheets, but that purple ring around his first sector time. So Lando Norris looking to improve. Carlos Sainz has gone a little bit slow in the middle sector for Ferrari. It's only good enough to go 4th fastest at the moment. Lando Norris improves through the middle sector. Not purple, though, for the Briton, despite his dominance in the sprint race earlier on this afternoon. Lando Norris then coming around the final corner. Is he going to be able to go to the top? No, he is not. Slots in just behind George Russell's time. 0.06 of a second off the pace, even though he went fastest in the final sector. Couldn't put together the fastest lap overall. So tight between those top drivers already. We are looking down towards the bottom end of the grid though now and starting to put together a picture of the 5 drivers that need to improve if they are going to get through into the second round of qualifying. Ocon and Gasly yet to set a representative time in the Alpines. But Magnussen, Joe and Colapinto, 3 drivers that definitely need to improve. Hulkenberg also teetering in 15th place, especially it stands as Pierre Gasly just coming around the final sector now in the Alpine. You can see him coming towards the final corner on your screens. And Gasly comes across the line. And where's he going to slot in? 5th fastest for Pierre Gasly. A very solid lap indeed. That does put Nico Hulkenberg down into the bottom 5. Can Esteban Ocon get anywhere close to his teammates' time? The Frenchman trying to match Pierre Gasly in his final couple of races for Alpine. It stays last for Esteban Ocon. 0.6 of a second off of where he needed to be to get himself through into Q2 as it stands. The pink Alpine. The pink is just so much better, isn't it, on the Alpine? When and why did I start a YouTube channel? 3-4 years ago, I think. What's happening with Charles? Not the best of lap times from Charles. 11 fastest at the moment. It's still good enough as it stands. Oh. And that was the problem for Kevin Magnussen and why the Haas car is a little bit adrift of where you would expect it to be. Just got all out of shape through that middle part of the lap. Thank you for subscribing, Tyler. Massively appreciate that. Your voice is low-key like Horner's. I don't take that as a compliment. I think it's just because we're both British. Send Perez down, another Q1 elimination. Looking a little bit better for Sergio Perez at the moment. He is 10th fastest, but certainly not guaranteed to be safe with that lap time. Is Sergio Perez. What's up with my mic? Oh no, is there something happening with the mic? I hope not. I hope there's nothing wrong with the mic. I'll have a little look at it in a moment. Let's have a look. Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen trying to save their qualifyings after a couple of points scored. Oh, the mic's going in and out. Oh, apologies. I'll have a little look. My voice is out of sync. That's annoying. Oh. I'll try and have a little sort of it between the qualifying sessions. Thank you for letting me know, though. Let's have a little look. Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg haven't improved through the first sector. Hülkenberg through sector 2. Just inside the time that he needs at this moment. Nico Hülkenberg continuing on. Kevin Magnussen also just inside of Alex Albon's time through the middle sector. Need to improve to the both of the Haas cars. Hülkenberg does just about, is 0.03 of a second quicker than Alex Albon. Kevin Magnussen comes across the line. 12th fastest for Kevin Magnussen. Charles Leclerc is 11th fastest at the moment. It's just gone purple through the middle sector, though, in the Ferrari. It's going to jump considerably. Here we go. Up to 4th place goes Charles Leclerc. Zhou Guanyu is super slow through both first and second sector. I can only assume that he's not on a full flying lap. Same with Valtteri Bottas being 9 seconds off the pace. Watching this for my boyfriend, who's an F1 fanatic. Oh, we'll get you involved, don't you worry. Audio and video sync now? Oh, okay. It might have just been a delay on YouTube for some reason. Ooh. And Oscar Piastri into the gravel. Just putting a little bit of dust on those soft compound tyres. Piastri 8th fastest at the moment. Good enough to get through. I think it's those drivers in and around Kevin Magnussen's position that will be feeling the pressure right now. Hülkenberg, Albon, Zhou, Colapinto, and Ocon, the drivers that need to improve. Let's have a little look. Zhou Guanyu improves through the first sector. Second sector. Can he continue? Currently 18th fastest, the Chinese driver. 2 Grand Prix left in Formula 1. And he wants to go out on a little bit of a high for the Stake Sauber team he has been part of for his entire rookie campaign. Valtteri Bottas behind is going slowly through the middle sector. Bottas only 13th fastest at the moment. Still under pressure. Lawson and Tsunoda are on outlaps right now. Hülkenberg, Albon the same. There's drivers that are going to be coming around and setting faster lap times. Here comes Zhou Guanyu then up to 11th place, ahead of Sergio Perez in 12th. Will that be good enough for a Q2 outing? Valtteri Bottas comes across the line. And I don't think that is going to be for Valtteri Bottas. George Russell goes even quicker with a 121.3. Very nice indeed from the Mercedes man. Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris the closest. Max Verstappen also just 0.2 adrift. So very close between second, third, and fourth place on the grid as it stands. But as I say, we're looking down at those bottom five. It's Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, Albon, Colapinto, and Ocon that need to improve. They're desperately looking for those tenths of a second that will get them through into the second qualifying session. Magnussen, Bottas, and Lawson hoping that they can't find them. 2 minutes to go in this first qualifying session. More than enough time for drivers to get another lap in. Lando Norris coming around, improving in the first and second sectors. No purple sectors from Lando Norris in this lap, but personal bests nonetheless. And it's going to improve on his lap time to go second fastest. A little bit slower in that final sector. Just means that he slots in about a 1/10 of a second behind George Russell's first place lap time. Carlos Sainz drops down to third. Keeping an eye on Lawson and Tsunoda, the two RB drivers on the fringe of getting through. Lawson just about at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda the closest. Just 0.009 of a second separates them. And the ability to continue into Q2 and stay out in Q1. Hülkenberg looking to improve as well. Albon going quicker. Colapinto going quicker through the first sector than he has been before. It's going to be very tight indeed between these midfield teams. Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen also under pressure. Colapinto improves, but it's not amazing first sector time. Alex Albon a little bit better in his Williams car than Franco Colapinto behind. The Williams just not looking 100% certain in this qualifying session. Hasn't looked 100% certain in a little while now, this Williams, in this second half of the season after starting really well. Points finish in Azerbaijan. It looked like it was going to turn around for Alex Albon and the team. Franco Colapinto was a breath of fresh air. Couple of crashes in the last few weekends have put a dampener to the end of the season for Williams, and also obviously Alpine getting that double podium finish and stretching them to an uncapturable position ahead in the standings. But here comes Franco Colapinto. Can he get himself out of that bottom five? No. Franco Colapinto will stay in the bottom five and out of qualifying. Albon comes across the line to go 15th fastest, but Esteban Ocon behind is improving, and Esteban Ocon is not going to make it. It's a poor final sector from Esteban Ocon. Charles Leclerc goes quickest of anybody at the checkered flag. Sergio Perez is looking to improve as well. Lawson, Tsunoda, and Hülkenberg are all looking to try and get past Alex Albon's time. Sergio Perez has put himself 8th fastest and clear of the drop zone, so it won't be another Q1 exit this time around for Sergio Perez. Liam Lawson is going quicker in the middle sector, but it was a poor first sector from Liam Lawson. We could see both of the RBs disappear out of qualifying here. Liam Lawson coming across the line. Can he improve on his time? No, it is going to stay 16 for Liam Lawson. Yuki Tsunoda jumps. Tsunoda just gets himself through. As it stands, Tsunoda is 15th fastest. George Russell comes across the line to go the quickest of anybody in this final part of the first qualifying session. Here comes Pierre Gasly to go 10th fastest for Alpine. And it's Nico Hülkenberg, the best of the rest driver in the sprint race. The man who finished ahead of the world champion Max Verstappen earlier on this afternoon, who is out of qualifying this time around. And Hülkenberg on the radio, frustrated. And yeah, talking about the soft compound tyre, clearly just didn't quite get the right balance for the soft compound tyre. And as I said, that's the difference. And that can make a huge change between sprint qualifying and qualifying here today. We see the drivers that are maybe stronger on the medium tyre come to the fore in sprint qualifying, where you have to use the medium in SQ1 and SQ2. Now in Q1, where you're allowed to use that soft compound tyre straight away, we see the difference. Both of the Williams cars, though, still not good enough. Alex Albon drops out in 16th place. Liam Lawson drops out in 17th. Nico Hulkenberg, 18th. Franco Colapinto in 19th place. And down at the bottom of the pack, Esteban Ocon will start in 20th for tomorrow's Qatar Grand Prix. Okay, let's have a little look at this microphone then and see if I can get to the bottom of it. I'll just slightly change the offset. See if I can change it around. There we go. I'll do that and we'll see what happens. Sauber's redemption arc is real. Yeah, both of the Sauber cars making it through to a Q2. Double Sauber Q2. Bottas through in 12th place. Zhou Guanyu through in 14th. I think the problem is we saw that the race pace, particularly of Zhou Guanyu, was not the best when it came to the sprint race earlier on. Alonso, where did that come from? Yeah, Alonso jumping up into 6th place as well. Again, this is what I mean, the soft compound tyre, you just get to see a different side of some of these cars. And suddenly those drivers that looked absolutely dead and buried in sprint qualifying yesterday come to the fore just a little bit more on the soft compound tyre. They have that little bit of extra grip because of the tyre. They've changed the setup slightly for that soft compound tyre, and some teams adapt to that just a little bit better. Points for Sauber. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go Checo. Yeah, Checo through to Q2. Hopefully a Q3 appearance. Sergio Perez has been in Q3 once since Liam Lawson joined the RB team. I think, we've had a couple of sprints in there, or 3 sprints in there. Only been in Q3 once. Ouch. Q2, P1, P2, P3 predictions. Doesn't really matter too much, does it? We're just looking for that top 10 when it comes to Q2. And I think that the drivers know that a little bit. Lando Norris backed off a touch there at the end because he knew he was through into Q2. Just looking, I'm assuming Russell, Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Piastri, they're all going to make it through into that into the third round of qualifying. I'm more looking at your Gaslys, your Magnusons, your Alonsos as to who's going to be able to get into those 9th, 10th places. And again, guarantee themselves at least a point scoring start for tomorrow's Grand Prix, which could make that difference for 6th place in the constructor standings. 2 Grand Prix to go, a 3-point lead for Haas in the constructor standings to Alpine. So much to play for those teams. It matters so much to those teams. Have F1 24 the game? Actually, that's something that I meant to pick up on before qualifying, but I'll throw it out into the chat now. Obviously, F1 Manager being discontinued. So we got F1 Manager 24, but there will be no F1 Manager 25. Are we gutted? Are we kind of indifferent to that? Did we play it? I mean, it hasn't hit the heights that they were obviously hoping, and that's why it's been dropped. Oh, and Liam Lawson just talking smack once again about an Aston Martin, saying that Lance Stroll deliberately slowed down through turn 9 and turn 10 once he had aborted his lap. Liam Lawson, you can just hear the frustration actually in his voice. He knew that this was a good opportunity. Obviously dropped down in the sprint earlier on today. Drops out in Q1 again now, and he's trying to secure himself a seat for next season as Liam Lawson. Still not guaranteed to be even at RB, let alone if he's going to make the step up to Red Bull for 2025. But let's see if Yuki can do the business for the RB team. 15th at the moment, a really solid weekend for Yuki Tsunoda in Vegas. Not, again, very good in the sprint earlier on today, but maybe this is an opportunity for Yuki Tsunoda to show a little bit of quality and try and get that RB car up towards the point scoring places, with Haas scoring a couple of points, Gasly looking competitive. The RB's slowly falling away, unfortunately, in that battle for 6th place as it stands. Lawson has beef with everyone. I mean, specifically the Aston Martins, it feels like, for Liam Lawson a lot of the time. I like Bottas if you like Bottas. Interesting. I mean, I do like Valtteri Bottas. I don't think he's, one of the best drivers ever. Anything like that. But I think he's a very solid midfield choice. I can understand why he hasn't got a seat for next season. Do I think it's a little bit harsh? Maybe. He's kind of at that middle point of your career where if you're in the right place at the right time, you can kind of hold on to your seat for a little bit longer. Sometimes things don't work out. Just hasn't quite worked out for Valtteri Bottas at the moment. Maybe a seat in a Cadillac in a season's time, or maybe something opens up for 2026. You just never know when it comes to Formula One. Saying that, George Russell is going to be the first driver to put in a flying lap time in Q2. Again, we're just looking for those bottom 5 drivers to drop out in this second qualifying session before the top 10 drivers of this afternoon get to battle it out for pole position here in Qatar. Bottas, Joe, Alonso, Stroll, Tsunoda, Gasly, Magnussen. Those midfield to lower midfield teams that will be looking at those final point scoring places that are available, at least to start in them tomorrow. Liam Lawson emerging with always someone else's fault. Yeah, that is a good point, Lily, actually. Not something that many kind of talk about when a driver just continually blames other people and other teams. I'd have to look at the onboards. I didn't see, obviously, the incident that he is trying to bring to the table. So we'd have to delve into that in a little bit more detail, whether or not it was Lance Stroll being particularly annoying in that middle sector. George Russell, a very solid middle sector from the Mercedes man, and he sets the standard at a 121.1. Are we going to see the times tumble into the 120s here as the cars ramp up towards the final stages of qualifying, the penultimate qualifying of the season? Oh, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Carter. If you're not new here, hit that subscribe button. We might just be able to hit 110,000 subscribers before the end of the season. It'd be a hell of a push. Be quite close. We might be able to just do it. Or if you are enjoying the stream, the best thing that you can do is hit that like button for me. Helps out massively. You can hit the like button on the stream. Max Verstappen then coming around. And seeing if he can get anywhere close to George Russell's lap time. Russell is currently still quickest. Piastri is slotted into second. The 2 Ferraris behind. Hamilton in 5th. Zhou Guanyu comes across the line. Nowhere near the pace at the moment. Here comes Max Verstappen. And ahead of George Russell he goes. It was looking like a good lap from Max Verstappen. No purple sectors though. So kind of snuck up on you. That's the fastest lap of the qualifying session so far. Here comes Lando Norris though. Purple in the first sector in that McLaren car. Just coming around the final corner now. Is he going to go into the 120s as of yet? And it's a 121.3 from Lando Norris. So not quite up towards the top end of the timing sheets as we were maybe expecting. Kevin Magnussen is the man that has dropped into the elimination zone. Although Joe, Bottas and Magnussen have all done not really respective times at this point. 130s, 136s and 139s of the cars that have set a lap time. Alonso, Gasly, Stroll and Tsunoda, the 4 drivers we are waiting to see where they funnel into before we get an idea of who is going to make it through into Q3. Fernando Alonso coming through the middle sector, a couple attempts slower than Max Verstappen, but improving on his previous first sector times. So slowly getting there. Literally close down the chat Wi-Fi and hit the like button as you said that. Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it. Are you watching? Are you watching on? If you're on mobile, you can either watch vertically or horizontally. We have 2 streams running. A vertical stream that you can find in the Shorts tab, or a horizontal stream with a little bit more detail. If you are on the Shorts stream, you can click the link and head to the full horizontal stream. A little bit more detail, track map, live radio commentary as well from the drivers. Just offers that a little bit more. And Fernando Alonso actually ducks into the pits rather than setting a lap time. Kevin Magnussen has come across the line and set a time more akin to what we were expecting. He's got 9 fastest so far. Bottas is the driver in 10th at the moment. Zhou Guanyu just 1,000th of a second slower than his teammate. Yuki Tsunoda 36 thousandths of a second. So it's incredibly tight between them. Yeah, Gasly, though, I'm expecting to jump up into the top 10, and does. Gasly goes a 1:21.4, jumps up to 6th fastest, does Pierre Gasly. Oh, Sergio Perez. A little bit of a mistake from the Mexican while we're watching a replay of the Red Bull. Yeah, just gets a little bit onto the gravel to Sergio Perez, but a 1:21.4. Don't think that was a push lap for Sergio Perez, but into the gravel nonetheless, and getting a little bit of dust onto those tyres, and that's why Fernando Alonso abandoned that lap. Snap of oversteer through the middle sector and ran wide, so the lap time would have been deleted anyway, and the Spaniard deciding to just come into the pits before that does. Can Lewis stay and go into Q3? That is the question. He's on the bubble, isn't he, Lewis Hamilton? 9th fastest at the moment. Again, you look at the cars behind him. They're the cars that you expect to be there. All of the top 8 drivers in the drivers' standings inside of the top 10 as it stands. Pierre Gasly is the surprise name, maybe, ahead of both of the Ferrari cars at the moment. Verstappen quickest, although Oscar Piastri doing his best to take that away from Max Verstappen. Fastest in the second sector, improving in the first sector as well. Here comes our sprint winner, Oscar Piastri. Can he put himself to the top of the standings at the qualifying as it stands? No. Even though it is a purple final sector as well, Piastri just a little bit off the pace in the first sector, and that's the difference. 36 thousandths of a second separate the two. Ooh. And Carlos Sainz nearly hitting into Lewis Hamilton there in the pit lane. Carlos Sainz been told to go by his engineer, so he does, and Hamilton has to slightly stamp on the brakes there, just to make sure that he doesn't hit the Ferrari car that he will be in next season. Max Verstappen on an outlap, Piastri second, Russell third, Norris fourth, Perez fifth. Perez having a much better qualifying than he did yesterday during the sprint. Pierre Gasly, as I say, that kind of maybe name that you're not expecting to see in that top 8. 6th fastest at the moment in the Alpine. Then the 2 Ferraris behind, Hamilton and Magnussen. Currently the drivers that have done well enough to get themselves into the final session of qualifying. Then we've got Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, and Fernando Alonso that all need to find some lap time if possible. It's very tight, though. You look at it, Kevin Magnussen, 6 tenths off. Valtteri Bottas only 7, nearly 8 tenths. It's a 10th or so across quite a long lap here in Qatar. It's not like your Austins. Oh, I keep saying Austins, Austrias. You get less than a minute almost for a lap. 5 minutes to go in qualifying then. Perez refreshed after his nap earlier in the pit lane. Charles Leclerc comes across the line and goes third fastest for Ferrari. Up into the top 3. George Russell has gone quickest by 1,000th of a second. He's so close. Less than half a tenth of a second separates the top 4 drivers at the moment. We really do have one hell of a qualifying shootout for pole position set up if it stays like this. Max Verstappen rebuttals with a faster lap than George Russell at 1:21 dead from Max Verstappen. And it's really starting to heat up in Qatar. I don't know if you can call it at this moment in time who's going to be able to get onto pole position. Lando Norris started there in the sprint. See, George Russell was just behind him in second. At the moment, top 4, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Piastri. Lando Norris comes across the line and goes quickest. So Norris now enters the fray. Puts himself quickest by a tenth of a second or so to Max Verstappen and George Russell behind. Sergio Perez now, the driver sort of furthest adrift in 6th spot. But a tenth and a half separates 1st and 5th. Kevin Magnussen now starting a flying lap for Haas. Just about safe as it stands. It would be Gasly and Magnussen, the 2 drivers from the midfield teams, joining that top 8 in Q3. Bottas, Joe, Tsunoda, Stroll, and Alonso, the 5 drivers that would currently drop out of Q2 as it stands. Lando P1 indeed, Miko. My bet goes to George. Oscar, please don't make me go bald. Thanks, Lily. What black magic did Red Bull do with these cars? It does make you wonder. That front wing change for Sergio Perez that they did during the sprint, and they almost did like a practice session effectively with Sergio Perez for the final few laps of the sprint race. Whether or not they were just able to find something out and unlock a little bit of pace in that Red Bull car, because it seems to be working. Verstappen and Perez much quicker than they were in sprint qualifying yesterday, and looking much quicker than they were in the sprint earlier today as well. Bottas, Joe, Tsunoda, Stroll, Alonso, still the bottom 5. And going into the final couple of minutes of Q2, Lewis Hamilton will be feeling the pressure a little bit there, though. Now he's got a bit of a gap to Kevin Magnussen, but when you're 9th fastest, still every opportunity that somebody might be able to just pull out the lap of their life behind you. Kevin Magnussen just coming around the final corner. And he's going to start his flying lap for Haas. So here comes Kevin Magnussen across the start-finish line. Kevin Magnussen wanting to be the man who scores points for Haas in the Grand Prix after Nico Hülkenberg did it for the team in the sprint. Kevin Magnussen has found a little bit of form at the end of the season, hasn't he? You know, considering he is dropped off the grid for next year, being replaced by Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman. But Kevin Magnussen, a little bit slower in that first sector than he was last time around, and already 0.3 adrift of Lando Norris's time. I know that we're not expecting him to battle for pole position here, but we are hoping that Kevin Magnussen can hold that Haas inside the points. Yuki Tsunoda does his best to displace. Here comes Tsunoda, and Tsunoda goes 10th fastest. Just a 100th of a second quicker, but Kevin Magnussen just gone quickest of anybody in the middle sector. That is a stunning middle sector from Kevin Magnussen. Maybe just going a little bit slower in the first sector, holding onto those tyres a bit better for the middle sector. because it looks like he's going to come across the line and really get in the mix. Kevin Magnussen, 6th fastest overall. Zhou Guanyu, 11th fastest. 11th fastest for Zhou means that he will drop out of qualifying. So will Lance Stroll, as Lance Stroll comes across the line and can't really improve too much. Here comes Valtteri Bottas. Can Bottas get himself up into the top 10? No, he's going to start behind his teammate, Zhou Guanyu. Yuki Tsunoda also will drop out of qualifying. Fernando Alonso is just coming through the final sector. You can see him coming down towards the final corner on your screens now. Is he going to be able to put an Aston Martin through into Q3? Yes. Goes 7th fastest. That puts Pierre Gasly in the drop zone. And Hamilton comes across the line to go 5th fastest. Sergio Perez then is in 10th. But he is going to be safe because Tsunoda, I don't think, is on a flying lap. So Max Verstappen fastest by 0.3 of a second. Sergio Perez just about safe. So both of the Red Bulls through, but in very different scenarios. Pierre Gasly, the man who misses out, 11th fastest in the Alpine. Again, it's so tight. 12 thousandths of a second. The only thing that separates Gasly and Q3. So incredibly frustrating. But he's going to be in the mix, though, for the points tomorrow, starting in 11th place. So we have got the top 8 drivers, as you'd kind of expect. Both of the Red Bulls, both of the McLarens, both of the Ferraris, and both of the Mercedes through to the final round of qualifying here in Qatar. They're going to be joined by Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin and Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, the 2 drivers that will be starting in the point-scoring places tomorrow for their teams. Pierre Gasly will drop out. He was 11th fastest, so he'll start just outside of the point-scoring places tomorrow, and he'll be with Zhou Guanyu in 12th, Valtteri Bottas 13th, Yuki Tsunoda 14th, and Lance Stroll was 15th fastest in that second qualifying session. So those 5 drivers are now out. They join Alex Albon, Liam Lawson, Nico Hulkenberg, Franco Colapinto, and Esteban Ocon in knowing where they're going to start for the Grand Prix tomorrow. The top 10, anything could change. Verstappen fastest at the moment from Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc 3rd, George Russell 4th, but it really is just... it's so tight to call at this moment in time. Max Verstappen fighting for pole was not something I expected to see, but it's very Max Verstappen to be in the mix, isn't it? All of a sudden for the Red Bull team comes to the fore. Oop, there we go. If we could hit that like button as well, we've got 640 people currently on the main stream. So if we could hit that like button along with the 162 that are on the short form stream, that massively, massively helps us out. We can get sort of 300-400 likes, usually is the range that we end up with, but you could make it even better. Let's go for 500 likes. Why not? It's the penultimate race of the season. We're having a party in qualifying for Qatar. But no, massively appreciate all of you guys sticking around. And if you could, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel as well. We're trying to get to 110,000 subscribers before the end of the season, which, considering our goal at the beginning of the season was just 50,000, is a little bit mental, isn't it? We've doubled what I was expecting to get over the course of this season and then some. But with one race left to go and a McLaren Constructors Championship possibly on the way for us McLaren boys, could be a very, very good end indeed. And Fernando Alonso, celebratory over the radio. Very happy indeed with that lap, the Spaniard. And it should be. It's kind of taken the Aston Martin from a pretty terrible weekend it looked like they were going to have here in Qatar. He was starting to mess up as well. He had a little bit of a moment, didn't he, Fernando Alonso? And actually had a moment on his fast lap again inside of that Aston Martin. So there was even more pace available to Fernando Alonso on that fast lap. And off the track he went beforehand. A lot to play for Aston Martin. Let's have a little look. Pierre Gasly. Oh. In between runs, we can see Pierre Gasly with a printout of the data. Very retro of Pierre Gasly there. Can't remember the last time I saw a driver inside the cockpit with an actual sheet of paper. Obviously, they have the two screens in front of them inside of the cockpit, and they do have their data usually on the right-hand screen, along with data with other drivers, so they can see where they need to improve and what they need to improve on. But actual sheet of paper in Pierre Gasly's hands there. Very, very fun indeed. Lewis Hamilton, though, just about through as well. Slower than his teammate still. Hamilton, obviously, those talks yesterday after sprint qualifying of just being slow and maybe lacking a little bit of confidence in himself. Let's see if he can get a little bit... Oh. And Hamilton does indeed hits the steering wheel in frustration. Hamilton not very happy at all with that lap, which I think is a little bit harsh on himself considering where he ended up. Got in front of his teammate at least. Oh no, sorry, he didn't get in front of his teammate. We'll hope to get in front of his teammate in the future. But George Russell, generally speaking, has been the faster qualifier. George Russell in the mix for pole position during the sprint qualifying yesterday. We're going to have one final session to see who will get to the top of the timing sheets for the actual Grand Prix. After a McLaren 1-2 in the sprint, Oscar Piastri took the victory. Lando Norris just behind in second after a last lap, well, last corner maneuver from Lando Norris to give his teammate the victory. We're now looking at whether or not Max Verstappen, the current world champion and four-time world champion, can get himself another pole position, or if someone like Charles Leclerc or George Russell can get in the mix for Ferrari or Mercedes. There is Max Verstappen. Just looking at the data, as I was talking about, Pierre Gasly's got that data in front of him. He can see where he needs to improve, how he needs to improve. And considering he was fastest of anybody, even though there are still areas to improve, we could see the drivers drop into the 120s here, expecting some very swift lap times. Let's see, what are we expecting here? We're probably, Kevin Magnussen and Fernando Alonso, you'd imagine, will slot in 9th and 10th place. Which way round they'll be, we'll have to wait and see. Max Verstappen, though, putting himself in and amongst... I just wasn't expecting him to be there. I was expecting this to be another kind of shootout between Norris, maybe Russell, Piastri. Max Verstappen entering the mix. See, then 12 minutes on the clock for Q3, and we get underway. Kevin Magnussen just coming around turn 3 now. And the Haas car is going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time. George Russell joins him out on track. Piastri there as well. Lewis Hamilton coming out 4th. Charles Leclerc. Oh, no, sorry. Carlos Sainz comes out behind Lewis Hamilton, then followed by Charles Leclerc. Giving us a little bit of an order as to when these drivers are going to be coming across the line. Who's going to be where. Kevin Magnussen's going to be the man to set the standard here. Sergio Perez just coming to the end of the pit lane. Both of the McLaren cars sitting in the garage. Perez in Q3, wow. I think they've just managed to sort out that car finally, haven't they? There's Max Verstappen looking much more comfortable indeed. He looked all over the place, all at sea when it came to the sprint race earlier on. Lost positions at the start to midfield drivers that you wouldn't expect to be losing places to. Max Verstappen now coming at it once again. And the final man in the pits is Max Verstappen, actually, as Lando Norris just comes out onto the track. As I say, Kevin Magnussen is going to be the man to go first. So it's Magnussen, followed by Russell, Piastri, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, Perez. The drivers that we're going to be looking at for their fast times. 10 minutes to go in the session. Getting those tyres into the right window. Keeping an eye on their lap times. Perez can't follow green lights. Not fit for public roads, let alone the Formula 1 grid. Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? In fact, obviously the light went green at the end of the pit lane. Then Franco Colapinto overtook him whilst he was stationary at the end of the pits. Do I not like Hamilton? You never talk about him. I don't mind him. It's just he's not really in the mix, is he, at this moment in time? He's having a bit of a tough end to his time at Mercedes. I wouldn't say I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. Why isn't Max coming out? Maybe just going for the one run. Max Verstappen, or deciding to go for a little bit of an offset. Maybe go out onto the track when there's less traffic. Of course, he will come out, but not at the moment. Kevin Magnussen then at 121.5 from Kevin. Charles Leclerc is going quickest of anybody through the first and second sectors. So the Monegasque looking very quick indeed at the moment. See what Charles Leclerc's lap time is like. Carlos Sainz comes across the line at 121.0. I think Charles Leclerc is going to be into the 120s here, 120.8 for Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri trying to get a little bit of a tow as he's starting his flying lap. Hamilton the same. George Russell also has set a lap time technically, but not a representative one. Went for another lap just to try and get those tyres into the right window. Lando Norris not overly quick in the first sector, but still more than enough time to make up for that. George Russell, though, goes quickest of anybody in the first sector so far. You can see that purple circle around George Russell's first sector lap time. Fernando Alonso goes quicker than Kevin Magnussen to go into third spot. The two Ferraris still at the top of the timing sheets at the moment. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, the two drivers yet to set a full lap time, and Lando Norris isn't going to, comes into the pits. Lap time deleted for Fernando Alonso as well due to track limits, drops him back down to the bottom. George Russell, though, is on a flyer of a lap. Coming around the final corner comes George Russell. Surely is going to go into provisional pole and does by 0.3 of a second. George Russell has a huge margin to play with there. A 120.5. Piastri can only go fourth fastest and is nearly 0.6 of a second off the pace. Hamilton comes across the line, a 121 dead, but again, 0.4 off George Russell's lap time. George Russell just looking phenomenally quick at this point. Lando Norris on board. Why did he decide to abandon this lap? Was there a little mistake from Lando? Yeah, just got into the gravel and lost about half a second there. Did Lando Norris at turn 5. Yeah, could have been disastrous. Managed to keep hold of it, did Lando Norris, but the tyres covered in the dust. Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Fernando Alonso, the three drivers without lap times. But here comes Max Verstappen. Verstappen, again, out on track, waited, and now has all the track all to himself, effectively. He's might just about catch up to the back of Lewis Hamilton ahead by the time he gets round to the final corner, but likely that Max Verstappen won't see a car for this lap. And that's what he wanted. Getting that fastest first sector in now, Max Verstappen. Loads of roads to run into, of course. As wide as he can through 9 8. Lovely through 9 and 10 as well. Max Verstappen looking very, very comfortable inside of that Red Bull car all of a sudden. The complete polar opposite to what it was during the sprint race. He's 0.6 of a second off George Russell's time through the middle sector. It is incredibly tight at the top of the timing sheets right now. Verstappen, the final sector is going to be the deciding thing. Here we go. Max Verstappen comes around the final corner. Is he going to be able to go top? No. 45 thousandths of a second shy. Max Verstappen after the fastest first sector. He was green in the middle and final sectors as well, Verstappen. But just not quite fast enough to take provisional pole. Of course, everybody's got a few laps to run still. Drivers just coming into the pits. Fresh set of boots onto those cars. Soft compound tyres going on. Can we get 200 likes? Thank you, Mark, for that. Yeah, can we get 200 likes? Let's hit that like button and try and see if we can get it up to 200 likes for the stream. Lando Norris now coming around for his flying lap. Abandoned the last one, so needs something a little bit special here, Lando Norris. One shot at it. George Russell coming around, Verstappen as well, coming out of the pits now. Charles Leclerc, Hamilton and Sainz still in the pit lane, but surely will come out for one more flying lap. Oscar Piastri is out on track at the moment. Fernando Alonso's still in the pits after his lap time was deleted. He asked if they could have a little look at that, Fernando Alonso, because he thinks he doesn't gain an advantage from going wide. There's Pato O'Ward, reserve driver for McLaren, of course, IndyCar driver, and maybe will end up being a Cadillac driver in the future. Is one of those names being bandied around because he does have a lot of Formula One experience from being partnered with McLaren for such a long time. We've seen him in a good few free practice one sessions. He's had a lot of tests with the McLaren team, so has that experience without being a fully fledged Formula One driver. Here comes Lando Norris. Still no time set for Lando Norris. Backs off. Lando Norris really struggling at this moment in time. Going slowly down the pit straight. Oscar Piastri coming past. Piastri and Norris from a 1-2 earlier on in the sprint race now sit 6th and 9th in terms of their lap times. Of course, Lando Norris hasn't yet set a proper lap time as such. A lot of pressure now on the McLaren boys to get it right sooner rather than later. McLaren or Ferrari? I mean, I'm a McLaren boy at heart, unfortunately. I would love to see McLaren win the Constructors' Championship. As nice as it would be for Ferrari, can't go against my McLaren roots. 2 minutes to run then. George Russell, currently the fastest man of them in this final Q3 session in Qatar. Max Verstappen, second fastest. Charles Leclerc, third. Hamilton, fourth. Carlos Sainz, fifth. It is very, very tight indeed between these drivers out on track. Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari car, third fastest at the moment. 0.3 of a second. Adrift of George Russell. But Carlos Sainz is going to be the first Ferrari to start a flying lap. Charles Leclerc just coming around the final corner. Piastri and Norris going pretty slowly towards the final turn. And let's see what the McLaren boys can do. Piastri comes across the start-finish line first. Lando Norris is going to come across the start-finish line now. So this is it then for the final qualifying session here in Qatar. It's going to set the standard for the top 10 when it comes to the Grand Prix tomorrow. And you've got one shot at it. Carlos Sainz doesn't improve through the first sector. Charles Leclerc doesn't improve through the first sector. Oscar Piastri does, and Piastri going quicker at this moment in time than Leclerc and Sainz's first sector times. Going to be very tight indeed. George Russell, Max Verstappen towards the back end of the pack. I think Lewis Hamilton is going to be the last man across the start-finish line. Charles Leclerc better through the middle sector. Carlos Sainz is going to come across the line now. Let's see where Carlos Sainz sits. Doesn't improve. Stays at 5th fastest. Does Carlos Sainz. Here comes Charles Leclerc after Oscar Piastri's had a pretty middling middle sector. Charles Leclerc also stays 3rd fastest. A 120.8. So it's between Verstappen and Russell at the moment. Unless Piastri can get in there. No, Piastri goes 3rd fastest. Kevin Magnussen stays 7th at the moment. Here comes Lando Norris. Only up into 3rd place. So Lando Norris was on pole yesterday for the sprint qualifying. Will not be on pole this time around. Couple attempts adrift of George Russell's fastest lap time. Fernando Alonso comes across the line to go quicker than Magnussen and Perez. Here comes Verstappen then. And Verstappen takes provisional pole position in front of George Russell. Sergio Perez comes across the line to go 9th fastest in his Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton is going to be the fastest, the final man, across the line. And it's only 6th fastest for Lewis Hamilton. So there we have it. Our top 10. And it's Max Verstappen's first pole position since the Red Bull Ring earlier on in the season. Max coming out of nowhere in that Red Bull car to pick up a pole position for Red Bull. George Russell in 2nd place then. He'll start in 2nd place again, will George Russell. He started there for the sprint earlier on today. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri will start on the 2nd row for McLaren. Charles Leclerc will start behind in 5th place. 6th place will be Lewis Hamilton. 7th place, Carlos Sainz. And 8th place, Fernando Alonso. Ooh. George Russell staying very dangerous from Verstappen. And Verstappen was right on the inside line of the corner. George Russell then had to get out of the way. And George Russell didn't improve. And maybe that was why Verstappen in a little bit canny there. But on pole as it stands. Where were we? Fernando Alonso, yes, in 8th place. An all Spanish 4th row of the grid. Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. Sergio Perez managed to get through to Q3, but it was only 9th place for the Mexican in the Red Bull car. And Kevin Magnussen starts just inside the point scoring places for the Haas team. Gasly, Joe, Bottas, Tsunoda, and Stroll were the 5 drivers to drop out in Q2, along with Albon, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Colapinto, and Ocon, who dropped out in Q1 and were not part of the top 10 shootout. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, please. Thank you, Sally, for reminding people as you go. Love watching George and Max battle. It's going to be a very tasty little affair going down towards turn 1, isn't it? Between those two tomorrow. But yeah, hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button as well. We're going to be live again tomorrow for the Grand Prix watch along. We'll talk through everything as it happens here in Qatar with Max Verstappen starting on pole position. The 2024 world champion has found his feet once again. And will we see another Max Verstappen victory in 2024? We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you guys so much again. And I'll see you tomorrow.